You are not alone. Gerald, that was so right. You are not alone. You are not alone. What a perfect way to start a month when we are launching a new sermon series on the topic of God, 4 weeks on God. And so I'm going to start it out this morning with a bit of an overview, and then we're going to go back and take more specific angles and perspectives as we go into the rest of the month. Each Sunday, a different perspective. We're going to go first God the funeral next week, and then we're going to have God the marriage, and then the last Sunday of December, God the birth. It's kind of like that movie Benjamin Button. We're going in reverse, if you saw that movie. So it is a blessing to be with you this morning and to be able to announce how we're going to start this series. And I need something from you. It's really important that you help out with this series if we're going to make this a really special month. This is a time in the Christian calendar. The Advent spirit is alive, which is a spirit of expectation, a spirit of the conception of God. Let's try to conceive God in new ways in our lives, in our own hearts, in our own bodies, in our own sense of what's possible. So let's enter the Advent season. And what I need from you is I need you to put your preconceived notions of God on the shelf. Just for a month. You can always pick them back up. You can always take them back down. But I want you to take whatever you think of God, whatever you think you know about God, because everybody has an opinion about God. Did you ever notice this? I mean, I've realized whether they like God or don't like God, believe in God or don't believe in God, everybody has an opinion about God. I learned this when I became a minister because everywhere I go, every plane I ride, every time I introduce myself, I get to hear somebody's opinion about God. Some people like God, some people hate God, some people are mad at God. It's all over the map. So we're going to look at different angles and perspectives on God. And what I want you to do is just put your preconceived notions on the shelf. So for example, if you think God is a crutch that is used by weak people, then I want you to just put that over on the shelf. Thank you. Just put that on the shelf for this month and imagine that there might be more. There might be something more, a greater possibility. Now, if your God is like Santa Claus, watching you, knows when you've been naughty and knows when you've been nice and is keeping a tab, I want you to just put your Santa Claus God on the shelf this month and imagine that there could be something more. There could be something much more. Now, if your God is one of those gods that strikes people down with lightning bolts, I want you to just, whoa, look out. I want you to put that God on the shelf. Now, if your God is an opiate to the masses that keeps the poor poor and the oppressed oppressed, I want you to just take that idea, God, and put it on the shelf and imagine that there could be something more. And then, of course, if you're one of the people who believes that all truth can be discovered through science, I want you to just put that on the shelf and imagine that maybe there are other ways of knowing and experiencing the truth. Just put it on the shelf. And then I've got, here this stole, which I've introduced at different times with different images of God. I've got, Christian images, Zulu images, Buddhist images, Hindu images, all different kinds of images from different cultures. And I just want us to take the names of God, the images of God that we have, and for this month, just take them off and put them on the shelf and just open our minds and open our hearts that there may be something more and deeper, more significant in our lives, that the word God, the idea of God, the holy, the sacred, the truth could mean in your life. Can you do that? Can you open up? Can you just really try to stay a blank slate as we talk about this really profound topic? Because all of this is like spiritual contraception. If you know what I mean, these kinds of ideas protect us, keep us from conceiving a deeper truth. See what I mean by contraception? So I don't want people going around saying, Marlin said we need to have a contraception fast during December. But in a way, spiritually, opening up, freeing ourselves for the birth of something new in our hearts, in our spirits. this month. So that's going to be exciting. I hope you'll be here. I hope you'll continue to be here each week and explore this with us. I had a wonderful experience to meet up with a person who I had not seen in 10 years. When I first met her, she's about 65 now. When I first met her, her mother had just died, and I was asked to do the funeral, and she had been divorced also that same year, so she was just having a terrible time. And I saw her recently, and she was just doing great. She was radiating. She just looked beautiful. She looked comfortable in her own skin. She looked happy and poised, and it was just wonderful to see her. She's remarried. I got to meet her husband. He just looked great, real handsome guy, and really nice, really, really smart, kind, gentle. He had all of his hair, all of his teeth, it's things that a lot of most women like. And so he was just really a special guy. So I was so happy to see her, and I asked her where they met, and she said they met at a retreat center. They were learning meditation, centering meditation. They learned it. It's a Catholic retreat center in Massachusetts run by Thomas Keating, who's a monk, Catholic monk, but very eclectic, very open-minded. They're not Catholics, but they went there to learn this practice. She met him there. They fell in love, and they have this wonderful life together. And I asked, was she always so spiritual? Was she always so into these kinds of things? She said, oh, no, absolutely not. Not in my family. My family, we were too good for church. That was for lesser people. We were above that in my family. We didn't organize religion, and people who went to church, just forget it. She said that's the way she was raised. Now, she also mentioned that her dad was a raging alcoholic and all the kinds of problems in their household, but of course they were above those people who go to church. And so she said she went through her whole life that way. Went to college, went off, had children. She was in her 40s, mid-40s. Her children were almost grown, and when she finally had an experience, she was traveling through England, and she went on a tour of the cathedral, the Canterbury Cathedral. It's the head church of the Anglican Church in England, and she was there touring, and the tour guide took her over to this one section of, with this group of people over to this one section, and as soon as she walked in, there were these stairs, and as soon as she stepped on the first stair, she felt like getting on her knees. She didn't know what had come over her. She couldn't even imagine. She'd never had such a feeling before in her entire life. She felt like getting on her knees. Now, of course, she pushed it away. She said, no, what is that? Forget it. She had some way of trying to explain it to herself, and she went on with the tour, didn't do anything, and went home. 6 months later, she was talking to a girlfriend, and they were talking about experiences in their own life, and they had this experience. She told her about this experience and said, I just had this, I was overwhelmed with this sense of that I wanted to get on my knees, but of course, I didn't, and I pushed it away. And her friend, who was on a spiritual path herself, said, I have a book for you that I want you to read. It's about mysticism and mystical ideas, and I think you might like it. And that book and that experience started her on a spiritual journey, an adventure, if you will, of the Spirit. And she started to learn meditation and do more reading, and her life has just changed in so many beautiful ways, and she's just doing great. And so I was thinking there's so many ways our culture tells us to sort of push away those thoughts, push away those feelings, those more mystical, we might call it mystical experiences. And we block ourselves from having those kinds of experiences oftentimes. And so I want this month for us to stay open, for you to stay open to those experiences in your own life and pay a little bit more attention and maybe give them a little bit more attention, and think about other times in your life when you may have had a similar experience and discounted it, and think about what that might mean now, and talk to others, share, and ask other people who have you ever had a spiritual experience? What was it like? A high point experience, a peak experience, a moment that changed your life? Tell me about it. Ask and share. That will make this month truly special and profound for everybody. So let's share more, because there's certain things that I want to talk about today that get in the way of our relationship with God, with truth, with a full understanding of life. And that one thing is religion. Religion can often get in the way of people's experience of God and the truth. You might have a different word for God. Use the word that you like, that's meaningful for you. But it's sort of like, religion can often be like the story of the emperor's new clothes. Remember that story when you were a kid about the emperor who had this big parade that he was going to be going to, and he wanted to have a fancy new suit and a nice new outfit, and so he got the 3 best clothes makers in his kingdom to come and make him a suit, and it was taking him forever, and it took him longer than they were supposed to, overruns, and he kept going back, and it wasn't getting done. Of course, they were getting paid by the hour, so they were making more money. They didn't mind. But when he finally, the day of the parade came, he went there, he said, is it done? They said, absolutely, here it is, and they held it up, and he couldn't see anything. It was invisible, and he thought, but the word had gotten out during this long period of time while they were making this outfit that this was made out of a special material, and people who were fools could not see it. So, of course, the king didn't want to admit that he couldn't see it. They were all real happy about it, and don't you love it? And so he put it on, and they helped him get it into it, and then he went out into the parade, of course, in his underwear. And of course, then all the adults who saw him in the parade, they didn't want to say anything either, so they didn't want people to think that they were a fool, so they just ignored it and pretended like they saw the clothes, and it took a little kid who saw the emperor and said, he's in his underwear. And then everybody started smiling and giggling and whispering, and eventually it got back to the emperor, and he realized that he was running around in his skivvies, and he decided that he went back to try to find those guys who would, of course, I'm sure, run off with all their new wealth. But religion can be like that. People can go through religion and just be posing and posturing and pretending that they believe things and that they agree with things and that they understand things and that they've had certain experiences, and they just pretend. And that gets in the way of our relationship with what's true and what's real, an authentic relationship with God, with truth, and with life. And so we got to get away from the posturing and the all that kind of pretending. So not in this church. In this church, let us be honest first with ourselves and then honest with each other about what we truly do believe or don't believe or whatever that is, because we need honesty if we're going to ever be truly in touch with what's real and to be truly engaged with God in our lives and spirit.